Hi friends, this is Bob Hatton from Germany. I've got some encouraging words for you today. We're in the middle of chapter 23 of the Acts of the Apostles, and Paul has been arrested. He's in prison, and there are 40 men, 40 Jewish people, Jewish men have come together, and they have sworn an oath that they're not going to eat anything until they kill Paul. Now, we find out something new in this situation, and that is that Paul has a sister, and his sister lives in Jerusalem, and she has a son, Paul's nephew. And Paul's nephew, he finds out about this plan to kill Paul. What they're going to do, they're going to insist that Paul comes back to court, that he appears in front of the Sanhedrin, the Jewish High Council, and they've got some questions they want to answer him. But actually, on the way from the Roman barracks to the Sanhedrin, they're planning to kill him. Now, Paul's nephew goes to the Roman commander, Claudius Lysias, and he informs him of this. And for the Romans, the main thing is that Jerusalem keeps peaceable and quiet, that there's no trouble there, that there's no excitement, there's no riots, that there's nothing going on. And really, I don't think the tribune, the colonel, the Roman colonel, is too much interested in the life of Paul, but he realizes that if this man is killed, if he's assassinated, as these 40 Jewish people are planning, then that would cause some trouble in Jerusalem. So he decides to get him away. And what he does, he gets 200 soldiers and then another 70 cavalrymen, soldiers on horses, and then another 200 soldiers who are armed with spears. And he puts them all together, and he puts Paul in the middle of these guys, and he sends them to Caesarea with him. Now, one of the criticisms that we hear when we're reading the Acts of the Apostles is that Luke was always exaggerating, and they say all the figures that he mentions, and the number of people being converted, the number of people who are now following Jesus, the names of the places, the distances, and so on and so forth, are terribly exaggerated. And this number of 470 soldiers just to escort one prisoner to Caesarea, it seems to be a terrible exaggeration. But actually, if we realize that Claudius Lysias, his main concern is to keep everything peaceable and quiet. He doesn't want to have a big disturbance during this time. He could have sent Paul to Caesarea together with maybe 4 soldiers and an officer. That would have been enough in normal days, but he was afraid that maybe they could have been attacked, and Paul could have been killed by this group of 40 plus men who were determined to kill him. So he does something which is rather ingenious. You see, in Jerusalem, the Romans only had a very small garrison. That was one of their strategies to not cause any kind of confrontation with the Jewish people. The force that was responsible for keeping order in the city was the temple police. And the Roman soldiers only came to Jerusalem at special times when there could be some kind of trouble. And that was, of course, during the festivals that they had, the 3 festivals during the year: the Feast of the Passover, the Feast of Pentecost, and the Feast of Tabernacles. So during this time, reinforcements were sent from the main garrison at Caesarea. And so there was a few hundred soldiers then based in Jerusalem. But normally the garrison was very, very, very small. So Paul came to Jerusalem to celebrate the Feast of Pentecost. And the Feast of Pentecost, it was just ending when he was arrested. He's been in prison for a number of days, maybe 2 weeks. And now most of the pilgrims have gone back home. The peace and quiet has returned to Jerusalem, and there's no need to have all these soldiers. So it'd be a normal thing for the reinforcements to be sent back to Caesarea. after the festival had finished. So he puts together the number of reinforcements, which seems to be the 200 soldiers, the 200 spearmen, and they're accompanied by the 70 cavalry men, and they're sent back to Caesarea. The cavalry accompany them about halfway to this place called Antiparis, which we can read about in verse 31, and they stay there, and then they come back to return to Jerusalem, and the foot soldiers continue on to Caesarea. And this is in fact, this is not an exaggeration on the part of Luke, but is actually a clever maneuver on the part of Claudius. He got Paul out of the city without causing any kind of disturbance, because it's only later that they realize that he has left the city. Now, as I just look into this small detail, and I also look into the things that Luke has been writing about, the distances between the cities and how long it would take to get from one city to the other. As I look in the Acts of the Apostles and look at the details that Luke has provided us with, I find them to be absolutely right. So then there's no reason for me to doubt the things that I cannot prove. I just trust the writer Luke. This gives for me then the Bible, the New Testament, a credibility that it is the Word of God, that it is true, and the things that are written here are things that I can trust. And I hope that as you study the Bible, you find out make the same discoveries as I have made. And with that, I just wish you a good day. Have a good time. God bless you. You're Bob Hatton.